All right, we're all set, Michael? All right, at 7 o'clock, we'll open the Board of Selectmen's meeting for tonight, February 20th, 2019. I'd like to start off with a moment of silence in memory of Mrs. Rosemary Hazel, who recently passed away. She was the wife of the former principal of Clinton High School, Assistant Principal David Hazel, and in her own rights, she worked for many years in the town hall, in the treasurer's office, in the collector's office, and worked many of the town elections. So it's just a moment of silence for Mrs. Hazel. Thank you. First item on the agenda is public comment. Is there anyone here for public comment? Yes, sir. Step right up, and you know the drill. Say your name and tell us what you have to say.
I actually do. Name is Jeff Swan, 132 Franklin. I apologize this evening, gentlemen. I normally bring a typed statement, but I didn't have enough time, so I apologize. I just wanted to follow up with where I left off last week. My ongoing investigation into the circumstance with the cable within the town has led me to believe that there is now a certain amount of money being accrued on a regular basis relative to what is supposed to be spent on the cable's studio and so forth. Because of the way this is being run and the lack that there is I cannot seem to attend a meeting of the cable committee, there doesn't seem to be any public way of establishing where the money is, how much money there is, and what is being done with it. I bring back to my original point that this is an asset to the town. The idea of a cable station is not just something to have. It's something to have if you're expecting to grow the town into something that competes with those towns around it. Sterling, Lancaster, the other towns have a successful studio and a successful studio environment, and we, a larger town, have nothing. So I wanted to restate again that this seems to be something we could resolve if we were to hold regular meetings, if we were to have some kind of arrangement where we could actually put some input in. This is something that we could fix. I don't know exactly how to resolve this problem because I don't control any of the PC parts that make this work. But as a citizen of Clinton, I would like to restate that I do believe this is an important issue and something that we should address in the near future, not in the distant future. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I will say that we do have a cable subcommittee, and I don't know exactly what the status of that is.
Well, I can address that if you want, Mr. Chair. I'm on the committee.
Okay.
So there is a committee meeting coming up next Wednesday on the 27th at 6:30. So there would be a meeting on that day.
Okay. Are we looking forward to the day when we can be doing shows? I mean, I tend to agree with Mr. Swan. We seem to be woefully behind in terms of our production on cable access.
Well, I think that's something the committee was looking at. A lot of the cable programs now are more remote. A lot of people are doing from their phones, that type of stuff. So that's the type of things we've been discussing at our meetings.
I see.
If
Yes.
studio's feasible.
Yeah, we certainly haven't turned anyone away. I don't think there might be a demand in the public. There's not a whole lot of demand for people, and that might be on us for not letting people know what assets are out there. But it's not like people are banging our doors down to do a new Tonight Show here. So I'm open to anything. And as I think I've mentioned before, we're about to negotiate our next contract, which is a 10-year contract. And as we've seen in the past 10 years, the way people consume information and content has changed a lot in the 10 years. And so I can imagine it's going to keep changing. So I'd rather get in front of something instead of trying to produce the next Wayne's World. I'd like to use the money and the assets we have to get out in front and give people what they're going to use in the next 10 years. This is probably going to be our last chance to get something from Comcast because their slice of the pie is getting smaller every day. So we're looking at how we can maximize those assets to give the people what's going to be good for them, not only today, but in the next 10 years.
Okay, thank you. So that's
Mr. Chair,
next Wednesday? What time?
Yeah,
6:30.
6:30, and
6:30.
Mr. Swan would be free to attend that meeting.
Sure. And I think, Mr. Chair, just to reiterate what the board members said, and I'm involved with the committee as well, if anyone in the community is interested or needs equipment or wants to do a program, please let us know. I mean, we do have equipment that can be rented out, or not rented, but loaned to to anyone in the public that wants to produce a program. So certainly, we have the capability to do it. And as Mr. Kerrigan said, whether we need to do more to let people know how to get access to it, but we have the capability of doing it. We just don't have people they're not contacting me anyways about wanting to do a show or a program or use equipment, and like Mr. Kerrigan said, maybe that's on us to get the word out better, but we do have that ability to do it, so it's not like we're in the dark here.
Okay.
We just, need to kind of ramp up the awareness, I think.
Maybe, I mean, you could discuss at the subcommittee meeting, and maybe we should devote some time here at the Selectmen's meeting for some sort of, in-depth discussion about how people could do that. The thing I know is I have friends in Sterling who get much less money than us, and when I go to Sterling, they're very often watching shows on Sterling Cable Access.
Yeah, but Sterling, they're regional, between the two, they get much more money than us. I mean, I spoke with the directors at that agency, and their budget is about double what we have in our budget.
How's that? It's a much
They're
smaller.
Sterling and
regional.
Lancaster.
Oh, they're
combined.
together. Oh,
So,
I see.
um,
Okay, well, I mean, that might be worth discussion also.
mhm.
Well, not to belabor the point, but Mr. Swan, you're certainly welcome next Wednesday at
Absolutely.
6:30 here at the Town Hall, I imagine in the conference room.
Right.
Yeah. Thank you. Next item is review of the minutes for February 6th. What's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes for February 6, 2019.
Second.
Motion is made and second to approve the minutes for February 6th, 2019. Is there any discussion? Being none, all in favor?
Aye.
And opposed, motion's carried. Next item on the agenda, and I see the young people in their Gale Force T-shirts out there, is a presentation from Gale Force First Robotics, and Charles McGinn is going to be doing the presentation, so is that correct? All of you, okay. If you could just,
Thank you.
as you speak, tell us who you are so that the people will know,
Thank you.
and your parents will get to beam with pride as they're watching you on the TV.
So hi, we're Gale Force, Team 126, part of an international organization called FIRST Robotics. FIRST stands for the Inspiration and Recognition of Science and Technology. We've been a team for 28 years, and this year we just wanted to talk to the board and the entire town about what we do and who we are. So this year the competition is themed Deep Space, and it surrounds a competition between 3 teams, each part of an alliance. So 3 teams on one side, 3 teams on another, each competing to get the most amount of points by the end of a 2-minute match. The match consists of us manipulating game pieces. The game pieces are a ball about 13 inches in diameter, all filled with air. So it's a bouncy ball, and that would be called cargo. And the cargo is used to put into makeshift spaceships that fill up at 3 different levels. And the other game piece that we use is a disc, also about 13 inches in diameter, and that's called a hatch panel, and those get velcroed to the side of the spaceships. So there are about 20 of the game pieces in total on each side, and the game pieces are used to score points during the match. And as I said, the alliance with the most amount of points by the end of the match wins the match and goes on to the next round. The competitions we go to are Bedford, New Hampshire, Shrewsbury here in Massachusetts, and at Detroit. The Detroit one is the international competition where we get to see other teams from all over the globe, and we get to compete for the international crown, the winner of the entire first competition. 2019, as I said, is our 28th year as a Gale Force, as our team has begun and continued this season. We started out in December when the competition was announced, and we got together as one entire team at the high school and decided how we wanted to approach the competition. That's the first step, deciding how we wanted to win the competition. The second step is designing the robot.
So yeah, after we figure out what we want to do to win the game, then comes designing and actually building the robot. My name's Molly McGinn, and I'm a senior, and I've been doing the program for all 4 years. It's been a really amazing experience. And basically to design and build the robot, the team comes together and it's all about collaborating. There are no bad ideas. Like, we always encourage people, especially the freshmen, to be creative and just think of whatever they can to achieve the goal at hand. And so basically, after students have come up with and presented their ideas, we choose which design would be most effective for completing the task. And then we get into probably the most physically demanding part of the team, which is actually building the robot itself. And it's really a great experience because those of us who want to go into an engineering career, we learn so many skills because we have great experienced NIPRO engineers that are willing to come down, and they teach us all that they can in the short amount of time that we have, 6 weeks. And we learn a lot about the design process and actually assembling the robot, and basically learning how to adapt and overcome problems and figuring out the best way to work together as a team to accomplish a common goal. And so actually building the robot, it's been a really great experience over the past 6 weeks. It's gotten super hectic over the past few days because last night was the stop build date, because every team around the world gets only 6 weeks to build their robot. And that's not a lot of time, but we made it work. And at midnight, that's when the stop build date is, and you're supposed to bag your robot. And it's basically a gentleman's honor that you bag your robot and stop working on it, because then it's fair for everyone. And so we did it, and it was really good. It was a really good experience. And so after we're done building the robot, then we can't just have a hunk of metal on the field. We need to be able to make it run and control it properly, and that's when programming comes in. Do you want?
So programming does exactly that. We give the robot the set of instructions it needs to complete the task that comes with every new year. Hi, my name is Kyle Cupertino. This is my second year doing FIRST, and I'm a sophomore at Clinton High School. So programming basically is responsible for taking what mechanical has given us in terms of the different, like the lift system that we worked on this year, or the wrist system that we worked on this year. Programming takes those physical aspects and uses computer code, in this case Java, to make those different components work together to accomplish and complete the goals that comes with a game. So programming for me it's given us a chance, because the Clinton High School doesn't offer many computer science programs. So to work one-on-one with a software engineer has been a really great experience, and he's taught us a lot more than I think I would have learned by myself. And I'm sorry.
You're doing fine. Don't be sorry.
Many of our mentors for FIRST are engineers, and they have various engineering degrees. Hi, my name is Kira Coyne. I'm a freshman at Clinton High School, and this is my first year on robotics. So in the many years that robotics has been a thing at Clinton High School, this is the first year that it's been mainly at the school. Our hours are open at 2:15 right after school ends to 8 o'clock at night. This gives students an opportunity to make it when they can and really get their hands dirty and just be a part of the process. I think that's really cool as a freshman, because being a part of other activities at school, I can't always be there at a certain time. So I get to go for an hour here and there. It's just such a good experience, and all the mentors have been really nice. All the upperclassmen have really helped me personally, and I've learned so much, including how to drill a hole properly, how to assemble, how to measure. It's just such a good experience, and I'm so happy to be a part of this program.
And so going further with that, FIRST does give you many educational opportunities and helps you with your career even further beyond high school. I'm Anna Ward, I'm a freshman, and this is my first year in the robotics program. So even though FIRST is only in a 6-week, for the build season is only a 6-week period, students learn many different skills within that 6-week period that they might not learn in school, which whether it's on the computer or actually building the robot, they can learn skills that they can use for their career or just in their life in general. And many students who are in the program go on to STEM careers, and they use the skills that they learn in this program in their career going forward in college and in their work. So doing this program, it gives them skills that they can use for many years, even if they're only in the program for a certain number of years in high school.
So we'd just like to thank the board and all of Clinton for helping us achieve ourselves for 28 years. We're one of the few founding teams that have sustained ourselves for all this time that the program has been available to the nation and the world. One of 7 teams, I think, that have been with FIRST since its inception. And we just wanted to thank everyone for your continued support, and as we go on to, after the build season, go on to our competitions. They're going to be live posted online, so if anyone wants to watch us compete, you're more than welcome to. And you can find that through our newsletter, through our social media. We're all over the internet, so if anyone wants to, we're available. Before we leave, just wanted to open it up to any questions from the board or anyone else.
So I'll open up to any comments or questions from the board.
I just think it's a great program. I can bend them. I mean, anytime you can foster young minds as you, I mean, in the engineering field, I think it's a great thing. So, kudos to you guys. I think you do a great job. And for the past 28 years, I think it's a great program, and it's good for Clinton.
Yeah.
I really do.
Yeah, thank you.
Congratulate yourselves.
Just to echo Mark, he is right, and you guys should be proud of yourself for all the work that you guys are doing. 30 years ago, I graduated from high school, and we didn't have this program in the school system then. But over the years, I've seen it in the daily item and stuff. All the kids working hard and learning, and I think that's great, and you should all be proud of yourself.
Yeah, thanks.
Mr. Connolly, yeah.
I just want to compliment you on your presentation this evening. That preparing yourselves and coming here and presenting is another skill that you're developing from FIRST, and you'll be bringing it into your future lives as college students and productive members of the community. So, great job you did here tonight.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, yeah, I'll echo my fellow board members. I think a lot of people don't understand the soft skills that you get from something like this, where you're team building, you're working with mentors, you're working with real engineers. So, and you never would have thought that public speaking would be part of it, but it was terrific. So, it's hard to believe it's been 28 years, but I actually was at the item and covered the first team. I hate dating myself a little bit. Yeah, I'm really proud of you guys, and the town is too. So keep up the good work.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I'd just like to echo what the board said. I think you're a credit to Clinton High School and to your parents and to the town, not only for the work you're doing and learning all these mechanical and computer things that are, I'm sure, quite beyond me, but for the grace and eloquence of your presentation tonight. Many people are very nervous about coming and being on TV and talking into microphone. You've done a wonderful job, and you're a credit to the community. Before we close, I'd like to suggest to the board that we usually make a donation to the Gale Force, and I wonder if we shouldn't take this opportunity to make that, someone make a motion to make a financial contribution from the Civics Fund.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we contribute the same amount that we did in previous years.
I'll second.
Motion's made and seconded to duplicate the contribution of previous years. Is there any discussion? There being none, all in favor?
Aye.
And opposed, motion's carried. And if someone wanted to Google you guys and get to watch, your competition, would we Google the Gale Force Globe? What would we
Looks like you have
type in there?
team126.org.
Yep, team126.org to watch our competitions. First puts out its own broadcasting service through bluealliance.org. That's bluealliance.org, and that happens, you'll get to see competitions all throughout the rest of the season. There are teams competing right now. Our competition is in a couple of weeks, but as I said, there are teams all across the globe that are competing currently. So if you would like to get a taste of what the competition looks like or what we're going to be pitted up against when our time comes, you're welcome to view that as soon as possible on your computer or other streaming service.
Okay, thank you very much.
Best of
And
luck,
if I
guys.
didn't mention it, we certainly like to thank Nitro for their participation in this,
Absolutely. And all of our sponsors.
and all your sponsors, yes. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Nice work.
Thanks.
Okay. The next item on the agenda is a presentation from Ms. Kelly Brown on green communities from the Massachusetts Department of Energy Resources. We're attempting to set up perhaps we should have
Shouldn't have
kept the
let
young
those-
people.
Yeah.
Should have let them leave.
Right. You got something up there.
Yeah, Mike, step out of the way, there's something there. Hey, we handled that pretty well. We figured it out. There you go.
Perfect.
Okay, perfect. And this is Kelly Brown from
Yes.
the Commonwealth.
Yes, you don't have to say
Welcome.
that again. Thank you. Thanks for having me here tonight and giving me the opportunity to come and talk about the Green Communities Program. So my name is Kelly Brown. I work as the Central Mass Regional Coordinator at the Green Communities Division at the Mass Department of Energy Resources. And the Green Communities Division really serves as the hub for all matters related to energy across all 351 cities and towns. Tonight, I've really been invited to come and speak about our Green Communities Designation and Grant Program. It's our flagship program, but I always just like to always put up a couple other things that we have going on. We offer municipal energy technical assistance every year. It's up to $12,500. It is technical assistance, and it's available for all different things a community could be looking to do, such as go out to bid for a solar project in town, or some communities are looking at having measurement verification done on projects that they've done within the community, such as energy efficiency projects, and then other types of things as well. Mass Energy Insight is a web-based energy management tool that's available to all 351 cities and towns, not just green communities. A lot of green communities are using the tool, and I'll explain that in more detail in my presentation. And then the couple links I have up there is we have a website with a lot of the documents going over in more depth of things I'm going to cover tonight. And then we also have a listserv that you can sign up for just to know the different things going on with our program and grant opportunities. Now, as I said, I'm here tonight really to talk about a Green Communities Designation and Grant Program. The Green Communities Program gives out up to $20 million in grants to eligible communities on an annual basis. Those $20 million come from RGGI, which is the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative, in alternative compliance payments, so out of the general funds. When I say communities are eligible, I mean designated green communities. In order to have access to that up to $20 million in grant funds, you have to be a designated green community, and in order to be a designated green community, you need to meet 5 specific criteria. The first 2 qualifying criteria go across zoning. The first one is to adopt as-of-right siting, which is no special permit, but does allow for site plan review. And there's 3 different ways a community can meet this criteria. They can do it through renewable energy or alternative energy generation, or through manufacturing, or through research and development. You only have to do one of the 3, you just have an option when a community is looking to become a green community. On the generation side, it would really be looking to put forth like a solar bylaw. A community would not need to put in place a solar system, they just need to make it easier to permit one. Criterion 2 is to adopt expedited permitting. That is where the, I don't know if Clinton has 43D, but that's one way to meet the expedited permitting process, which is a state permitting process, which is 180 days. The other option is to just show through your local zoning already that if an applicant submitted an application, they could get through the permitting process within a 12-month period. And that permitting process would be for those areas related to criterion 1 that are as of right. So criterion 3 is to put forth an energy reduction plan. The energy reduction plan has 2 parts. The first part is to put together a baseline of all the town's municipal energy usage. So at the town buildings, schools, includes vehicle usage, and then street and traffic lights. And the ways most communities have done this is by using Mass Energy Insight. That's that web-based energy management tool that could track your usage. One of the key features of Mass Energy Insight that a lot of communities have liked is that we've worked with the gas and electric utilities across the Commonwealth to have that electric and gas data downloaded into the system so that communities would not have to manually enter it, which has helped a lot in putting together that baseline. And then a community would need to, through energy audits, identifying different measures such as improvements in heating systems, weatherization, come up with a list of measures that would show how the community would reduce their baseline by 20% over a period of 5 years. The energy reduction plan would be adopted by the Board of Selectmen. Moving on to criterion 4, which is the purchase of only fuel-efficient vehicles. What that actually means, and I should just clarify that the 5 criterion that you see up here is actually what came out of the Green Communities Act that was in the statute, so this is exact language. But to put a little more detail to what that means for criterion 4 is the Board of Selectmen would adopt what's known as a fuel-efficient vehicle policy. The fuel-efficient vehicle policy pertains more towards administrative type vehicles. Heavy-duty DPW vehicles, such as over 8,500 pounds, would be exempt. Emergency response vehicles would be exempt. It more applies to like inspectional services vehicles and things of that nature. And what the policy has within it is a mile per gallon rating, whether you're purchasing a compact car, it would have one rating, or a different rating if you're purchasing a pickup truck or a sport utility or so on. So it doesn't require a community to purchase all electric vehicles, which I've been asked many times before, and I can see why you'd ask the question with the way that it's worded there. But it's more about looking at your purchasing when you are purchasing a new vehicle and looking at the mile per gallon rating along with that class. So for example, Ford Explorers, anything like 2014 or newer would actually meet the policy, just to give you an example of the type of vehicles that also can comply with the fuel efficient vehicle policy. And then the last criterion, which is minimize life cycle costs in new construction. The recommended way to do this is through the Stretch Energy Code. The Stretch Energy Code is an optional code that communities can bring forth to town meeting. It's a general bylaw, so it's not a zoning bylaw, it's a general bylaw that would, in most communities, requires a majority vote. When it goes to town meeting, what the residents would be looking at voting is this optional building code, which really there's a slight difference now between the 2 building codes. When it first was announced back in 2010, the reason it got the name Stretch Energy Code is it was more of a stretch. Over the last 10 years, the building code has in a lot of ways caught up to where the stretch code is. I would recommend to any community, and all of my communities that have been designated so far, to host an information session. It can be either at a Board of Selectmen meeting or another night, to just be able to hear about the stretch code. It's a separate presentation, about 15 or 20 minutes, and it would just inform people prior to town meeting of what the optional code would be and really where the differences are. One of the key things in the presentation that we would go over is if there was a cost difference and how that works out. Because a lot of people are concerned if there's a cost difference and how it plays out to upfront costs versus reduced life cycle costs. So you're going to see in front of you a map of the communities across the Commonwealth that have adopted the stretch code. So to date, we have 250 communities that have adopted since 2009. Of the 250 communities that have adopted the stretch code, 240 of them are designated green communities. So the reason you're going to see a difference between the 250 and 240 is the other 10 are just in the process of still becoming a green community. We accept designation applications once a year in October, so sometimes depending on when town meeting is, it might have fallen right before. They might have adopted the stretch code right before the designation applications were due and just needed some additional time to be able to complete the rest of the criteria. Now, once a community becomes a designated green community, I talked about the grant funding that they'd be eligible for. Each community gets what's called the designation grant. The designation grant is based on a formula. The formula is $125,000 as a base amount, and then additional grant funds based on per capita and population. When you run the formula as an estimate for Clinton, you'd be looking at about $150,000 for a designation grant. What that means is you'd become designated, we'd set that money aside, you'd submit an application and let us know how you wanted to spend that money based on purview, which generally communities start off by pulling measures that they've identified in that energy reduction plan, whether it's a boiler at a school or a boiler in a town hall or weatherization or upgrading your lighting to LED. They're trying to get to that 20% reduction, so those are usually the first things that they're going to pull and ask for funding for. Once a community spends their designation grant funds, communities have always asked, will there be opportunities for additional grant funds? And the answer is yes. So of the 240 green communities in our program, most of them are looking at getting competitive grant funds now. That's when they've spent their designation grant and they can apply for future grant funding through a competitive round. We're actually expecting applications in March for this year's competitive round. Applicants can apply for up to $250,000 for competitive rounds. If you add designation and competitive together, since 2010 when we began the program, we've given out over $100 million in grant funds towards energy efficiency type projects. Sometimes it's helpful just to see what some of your local communities and how they've been engaging in the program. So you have quite a few green communities around Clinton. Berlin and Lancaster have definitely been green communities for a while. Berlin being designated in 2012 and Lancaster in 2010. Both receiving multiple different grant awards either through the designation and competitive grants. West Boylston and Bolton are newer green communities and they're still working through their designation grant. I just want to add that I did talk quite a bit about the qualification criteria, and it can definitely take towns a little bit of time and resources to put together the different documents to coming into becoming a green community. So one way that some communities have been able to achieve the status and work towards becoming a green community is working with the local regional planning agency and getting assistance from them. So tonight I'm happy that my partners, John Hume and Karen Chapman, are both here from Massachusetts Regional Planning Commission. I'd just like to invite them up and maybe they can talk a little bit about how they've helped communities in their region achieve designation status. You guys want to join me?
Well, as Kelly indicated, becoming designated can take a lot of work, a lot of effort to put things together. The Massachusetts Regional Planning Commission has been through it with other communities. We don't have much of a learning curve. We've got the experience. And one way that the town of Clinton could get this funded through the Massachusetts Regional Planning Commission would be through a program that we have called District Local Technical Assistance. You may have heard of it before. I know your town administrator and planning director department are well versed with District Local Technical Assistance. It's the 12th year in a row that the Montechusett Regional Planning Commission has received funding from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts for us to assist communities in a variety of projects, including housing studies, economic development, and we also helped the city of Fitchburg become designated as a green community under DLTA. One advantage, if you did put together an application for DLTA, applications are due on March 4th. I know it's right around the corner. However, we don't ask for very much in terms of an application. A few paragraphs, just what project are you interested in and why does it qualify? And we did issue a request for service delivery that did go to your town, explaining what we were looking for and the deadline of March 4th. So that could be an advantage to your community because under District Local Technical Assistance, we would review your application at the commission meeting, MRPC commission meeting on March 7th. And if all went according to plan, it could get approved, or I would think it would get approved, and we could hit the ground running after we signed a memorandum of agreement with the town of Clinton, probably about mid-March. So that's one big advantage because to become designated, like I was saying before, it takes a lot of work, a lot of effort, and an application would be due this fall, I believe, Kelly?
Yep, so the next round would be due the end of October.
End of October. There is another funding source from DOER that Kelly could talk about, but one disadvantage, it probably, most likely, would not give you enough time to go in this October. You'd probably have to go in the following October.
Yep, so the municipal energy technical assistance I referred to earlier, one of the things that can be applied for under it is also assistance that we basically would have you work with your RPA. We would just provide funding to them to give you hours. So it's a different way of getting those same resources to help you put together the documents needed for becoming a green community. The difference between district local technical assistance and the municipal energy technical assistance is that our grant likely wouldn't be available again till over the summer. Where John was explaining, the district local technical assistance is available could be available a lot sooner.
Okay. That's it?
Yep.
Okay.
Unless,
I'll turn it over to the board. Are there any questions? Any questions from members of the board? Go ahead.
I just had one more thing to add. Since our deadline is March 4, the application has to be signed by the Board of Selectmen, and it needs to be discussed at a public meeting. It is being discussed at a public meeting this evening, but the application that we asked for could be prepared through your planning department, your town administrator, but it would need to be signed by the Board of Selectmen.
That's by March 4th.
That's correct.
Okay. Any questions from members of the board? Any comments?
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Well, just, you might recall, when I got on the board in the summer of 17, this was one of my goals, and I was happy to put it off. We just got a new facilities director at that time. So, I mean, I think this is stuff we should be doing anyway, and if it's something we can be mindful of while making productive changes to the town and then qualify for grant money, then I'm not sure where the downside is. I just want to make sure, I guess I'd be curious who we have to get on board to make something like this happen, whether it's a facilities thing or community economic development thing, or what do you think?
I think if I can, Mr. Chairman, at this point, it would just be the Board of Selectmen.
Okay.
Because if the town wants to pursue the DLTA funding That's just providing an assessment for the town. So it's looking at what the requirements are, what we already have done, what we don't have, what we have to do, and then providing us maybe templates to do that. But it would require votes of selectmen, town meetings, so there's steps beyond that we would have to go through. What the DLTA would be is just doing that community assessment. So it's not saying we're gonna be joining the program next month, but it gets us that, another step along the way, so. So if the board wanted to pursue that, that's all the buy-in that we would need, and then Mr. Duffy and myself could complete the paperwork to move forward to the next step.
I believe we should, our next selectmen's meeting after tonight would be March 6th.
So, if the chairman would allow a motion to authorize the chairman to sign the letter if the town administrator and the economic development director can produce it in time for submission. My motion is to authorize the chair to sign on behalf of the board.
I'll second.
Motion's made and seconded to authorize the chair to sign the required letter on behalf of the board, assuming that it can be, all the bells and whistles can be pulled together by that time. There any discussion? Being none, all in favor?
Aye.
And opposed? Motion's carried. Well, we look forward to moving forward in this process. I think it'd be a very beneficial thing for the town, and we look forward to working with you some more.
I look forward to it too.
Okay.
Thank you for coming in.
Next item on the agenda is a zoning bylaw discussion or proposal for retail marijuana establishments. The chairman of the planning board, Paul Curran, and economic development director, Phil Duffy, will be available to discuss the issue of pursuing a zoning bylaw amendment to increase the number of retail marijuana establishments in Clinton. Gentlemen, welcome.
Good evening. Welcome.
I believe Mr. Connolly has a particular interest in this issue, so I'll let
Thank you,
him begin.
Mr. Chairman. You're here because I initiated the conversation with the board, and we felt it was important to hear from you guys your perspectives on the idea of modifying the town's bylaw to increase the available retail sales licenses to whatever number is allowed by the state legislation. And I'm an advocate for doing that. We've already sent off letters of support for two companies that are seeking retail licenses from the state. So we have no more to give out. So I'm initiating the conversation, hear what your thoughts on the subject of changing the number on the bylaw.
Who was the second retail license?
There should be only one.
There's only one retail license that we have voted to go
Tyka?
on to the state.
It's Tyka, that's
We've
it.
signed the host community agreement for one. The second one is actually before the board tonight.
Yeah, so there's two in the pipeline.
Right.
Yeah.
KRD
Tyka's
would
one
be the
and-
second.
And the other one will be before us after you guys.
It's on the Parker Street?
Correct.
Yes.
And the way the current bylaw is written, it's 20% of the, what the off-premises alcohol license is. So that's why right now we're limited to the two.
And what do we have for licenses, 9? And I think it comes to like 1.8, so
Right.
round it out to the
That's a two.
closest number.
So if you're going to increase that, it will require a change to the existing bylaw.
How many are you looking to go to?
Is it 8 or 9 that's allowed by law?
Right, 9
Right.
is our number, as Mr. Curran said, yeah.
No, 9 liquor licenses, package store licenses.
Right, and that's what's allowed under the
Under-
state
under-
statute.
under the statute,
The town
we're
can
allowed
limit
the
it
same.
further.
Yeah. So what we did is, when we passed the initial bylaw, we limited to 20% of that number. Okay. So you could go to 100% of that number if, you know, if the board decides to move forward, and then would have to pass a town meeting also.
And it seems to me that limiting it to 2 licenses serves nobody's interest other than the 2 people who may be lucky enough to get the license. It doesn't serve the public's interest at all. I think competition and in price and in quality of product is enhanced if there's more than 1 or 2 vendors in the town. We've already jumped the hurdle of saying that we're going to do this and we're going to have marijuana enterprises in the community. I think if we're saying that it's to provide opportunities to the public, I think we should provide the best opportunities to the public. So that's my reasoning for supporting this idea. And I'm interested in hearing what you guys think about it.
No, that wouldn't include the grow facilities, though, would it?
No.
No,
we can't.
I don't
No,
think
we
there's
can't.
any limit on growth facilities.
No.
We could have 100 growing facilities.
I mean, this is all new to us, so we're
Yeah.
kind of learning one step at a time. I mean, as we, you know, you can see now there's going to be some traffic issues as these start to open up, and that's something we didn't really take into consideration yet. So we're probably going back to the drawing board on that to start.
But traffic's one good example.
Yeah.
If we only have 1 or 2
Right.
facilities available, the traffic is concentrated at one location or 2 locations.
Right.
Having 4 or 5 licensees in the community spreads out the traffic and the related problems that come with that.
So with it going to 9, would that change the zoning at all? And where
No,
they could be? Or
other than changing the bylaw
just the amount?
to reflect the state regulations.
Would the buffer change?
No.
If I may speak to that, and this is really a hypothetical discussion, and of necessity, it has to be a hypothetical discussion because we have no experience with this use, nor does any community in Massachusetts have any meaningful experience with more than 1 license at the moment. As a hypothetical exercise, though, it might be useful to understand what it would look like if we were to continue to limit retail licenses to the commercial and industrial districts, and also continue to require a 500-foot separation between retail uses. To understand, we're a small town. Some areas are going to be out of play because of the buffer to schools, playgrounds, recreation facilities, which I don't see town meeting eliminating. We should actually try to understand what are the zones where if we had up to 9 licenses, where these licenses might be issued. And we understand when you start separating by 500 feet, how many properties does that do? Because I understand what you're saying, Bill, that it doesn't benefit anyone, but it would also be kind of asymmetrical if we created a situation where the benefit accrued to maybe only 3 or 4 property owners. You know, it's kind of an interesting proposition.
As opposed to 1 or 2 property owners.
Yeah, as opposed to 1 or 2. You're right.
So,
You're right.
I mean, if we benefited 4 property owners, we would double the number of property owners.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, this is all a hypothetical discussion.
I mean, and
I mean, realistically, I could see maybe 3 or 4, but not 9. I mean, do we want to be known as a town where we're just selling marijuana and, you know, going from there? I mean, for years and years, we had the stigma of having the most bars in Massachusetts or in the Guinness Book of World Records. Do we want to, you know, go that way with the cannabis?
They weren't paying us 3%.
what's that?
They weren't paying us 3%.
Yeah.
I'm an advocate for as much as we can of having free enterprise and open competition amongst whether it's alcohol, gasoline, car dealerships, pharmacies. We regulate who can go where with our bylaws. Why arbitrarily? Where did 2 come from? The state said 9 or whatever number of liquor store licenses you have. Were arbitrarily, with no good reason, limiting that to 2. Why not 4? Why not 6? If they conform with the bylaw. It's not a proposal to change the 500 feet, the schools, the churches. It doesn't change any of that, and if you can only put it in 5 places in town, well, that's what the bylaw says. But why artificially give value to the first 2 that came in the door and limit the opportunities for other businesses to open their doors and compete, and limit the opportunities for the buying public? If you have 8 of them, they've got to compete price-wise and quality-wise to survive. And maybe they don't. Maybe 2 or 3 can't make it, but that's the free marketplace. So I don't think we should arbitrarily be limiting it to 2. It doesn't serve any purpose.
Whatever we decided would have to be approved at town meeting anyway.
Oh, yeah.
Right, oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, now, I think all we wanted to do tonight was open up the dialogue, open up the discussion.
And I think that the number, the 2 that we came up with, I think that was just something, because we were going into uncharted territory when all this stuff came on, and I think it was just to be on the side of caution, you know?
Absolutely.
It was prudence, quite frankly. This is a new phenomenon. We don't know what impacts may arise out of this new, extraordinarily new use. We still don't, quite frankly. And I guess, again, if we're opening up a dialogue, Bill, I'm going to play the devil's advocate again. The number 2 is arbitrary. The number 9 will also be arbitrary. And the fact that the market is arbitrary because we are probably the only community around that allows medical retail uses, one of very few in our surrounding area, that is also going to skew the market. So it's not a free market in large. So the question is, if we're going to abandon prudence, we can talk about that. We can abandon this idea of prudence. If we're going to do so moving forward, can we anticipate or contemplate any potential adverse impacts that this number of licenses might, for lack of a better word, bring to town? Because the local market, the market that is served by these establishments, that is purely local, the same as the market for haircuts or groceries or CVS. You don't travel 15, 20 miles to go to the supermarket. That market is kind of fixed in size, So the opportunity that an additional number of licenses might capture in order to be sustainable, if the local market is not big, is going to be coming in. And in most models of economic development, that's great. You want people coming in, bringing your money. We absolutely, so as a hypothetical, that's great. But again, this is a different use. So I think if we expand the number, I think we want to do so with consideration. Consideration and our ideas, quite frankly. And what we're looking for, we don't know, because it's so brand new. I mean, last year is not even 2 months ago, I don't think, that the first license was issued. So this is all new.
I would have no problems going forward with 1 or 2, maybe more, but bringing it up to 9, I agree with Mr. Curran there, Let's see how this all works out first. There's a medical or a recreation marijuana shop right next to Market Basket in Hudson, just opened up a week ago. There's 5 police details out there right now in the middle of the road, stopping the traffic and letting the traffic in. They won't even allow the normal sales people driving in there. They have to be bussed in. Now, all these new places coming up, are they gonna be able to handle this? This new place where they're coming before us tonight, that intersection to get on their property, that road, is awful. We got tractor trailers coming down that road. Yeah?
And that will normalize over time. That is a phenomenon of the moment.
Yeah.
That will normalize over time. But this is a discussion certainly worth having, and certainly worth bringing to town meeting. But it's as Mr. Jakonski says, this is the first tortilla dialogue.
Slow and easy.
I mean, I would err to the side of caution on it. I mean, yeah, we could do 9, but I would phase out just because we have a license for 9. I want to hand them out right away. Like some of my other board members said, I mean, we have to be, this is all new to us. I mean, I hate to say, just start handing out licenses and we have this huge chaotic mess out there because we didn't know what we were doing. So I'd rather take a slow approach to it, start off with 2, and see how we do it from there. Maybe it's every few years or so, then we issue another license, see how it goes. But I don't think we should just, if we do have town does go at 9, I don't think we should just issue 9 out right off the gate. I think we should do a slow approach over so many years.
Well, if the town approves 9, you know, I could be off the board, you could be off the board, and the new selectman coming in could give out all 9, so. You know,
Well,
That's
it'd have to
called
be a majority of the
democracy.
board.
Well, I don't know what you want to do. I will say this. I read an article the other day, I forget where, probably in a magazine in a doctor's office or something, about this whole rollout and implementation. And they compared it to the country after the Prohibition Amendment was repealed, when we went back to drinking. And there were all these tremendously strict requirements for the new bars and package stores, just as there are these amazingly strict requirements for the marijuana or cannabis shops. And over the 30 or 40 years since that day, most of those restrictions have been found to be unnecessary and have died away, and they speculated that that's probably what's going to happen with the marijuana shops. I don't know. But certainly I'm sort of in the middle myself. I mean, I think probably it should be more than 2. I don't know that we have to open up the barn door to 9, you know. But I think the more shops there are, the less traffic congestion there will be at each one. You know, much of the problems that we're experiencing with traffic, not us, but the communities that have them, are the fact that there's so few. What are there, 9 recreational marijuana facilities in this, 9 or 10?
Is that what they're at?
Something like that, 10 or 11,
Throughout the whole state, you're talking about.
in the whole state.
Commonwealth,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's still a very.
They're very few, so they're drawing customers from
Yeah.
all over, you know?
So those numbers going to dwindle down over time.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure when Lester opened, there were people driving from Boston.
Farther than that, I'm sure.
And, you know, they're not going to be, now they'll drive to Hudson, it's closer. And I think Brookline's open, they got one in Brookline now, so they're all going to Brookline now. So anyway, I don't know where this leads us,
Mr.
but,
Chair?
yeah.
To know exactly what we have in front of us, how difficult would it be to prepare that map, to see exactly how many we could fit?
Oh gosh, I don't know, I guess I could.
I've always been curious, because I think we,
I could talk to the GIS department at MRPC, and, you know, I could give them the constraints, and you could probably.
just to know what we're actually dealing with here, because if 9's off the table, then maybe we don't need to get excited about 9, but.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, why don't I do that? I can't imagine, I'll get a proposal from MRPC on what it would cost to have their GIS department do that, and my guess is that it's gonna be a number I can capture easily in my budget, and
Great.
we'll take a look at it.
That would be helpful.
Yeah.
I should say, you know, this is a hypothetical conversation. You know, this is an industry that is before your board with increasing regularity. It may be an industry that emerges and is, you know, a meaningful part of our local economy. And if so, it is regulated through the state, and that filters through local regulations and zoning. You know, as this industry evolves, you know, I think it is important that we be responsive to the changes in the industry and the changes in the regulatory environment that's promulgated at the state level. There are a lot of uses that were proposed by the Cannabis Control Commission where the legislature and the governor said, no, that's not what was in the referendum, put the brakes on that. Those things like on-use consumption, on-site consumption, accessory uses, those may begin to be allowed under the state's regulations, and we should understand and be responsive to those changes moving forward as a community. As you've heard at your last meeting previously, members of the board asked these different people why they were looking at Clinton, and it was a mix of a number of things, but among the things that you guys have your ducks in a row. You have regulations in place. You seem open to this, and we want to continue to have that reputation. But we also have to look at the community at large, as a whole, and try to anticipate to the degree that we can what this will mean 5 and 10, 15 years down the road. And we do that in part through zoning.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
That it?
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you very much for your time and your consideration, and we'll continue the discussion as we move
Thanks, guys.
forward.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I may I ask the board to make a motion if it hasn't already been made?
To what?
Concerning the Green Communities presentation.
Oh, we did.
We did.
Oh, you did, so you made that motion?
Yeah, we're all set.
Okay, that's great.
Michael thinks we're all set, right, Michael? Yeah.
Thank you, Phil.
Next item on the agenda is a property easement proposal for 285 West Boylston Street. Mr. Peter Moen of MHBB Realty Trust requested to meet with the Board of Selectmen to discuss a potential warrant article for an easement across town-owned land on the Clinton landfill to allow access to his property for a solar array.
Good evening. My name is Paul Broadmerkel. On my right is Peter Moran. We're both here this evening, and by the way, thank you for taking time out of your agenda to listen to what I promise you will be a very brief presentation. We have a piece of property that has been in our family for some 94 years. It also happens to be located right next to the Christian landfill. On the westerly side, we are direct abutters to the landfill. This is the property here. It is some 28 acres. It is also bifurcated by the Clinton-Sterling town line through here. So we have some 13 acres in Sterling and 15 acres in Clinton. My grandfather bought it in 1926. It was a wood lot at that time, and it is still undeveloped to this day. It's zoned industrial, as is our other property in Sterling. We would like to make some use of it. We've tried over the years to gain some access from West Boylston Street. We are separated from the highway by a piece of open space, DCR property, Commonwealth Mass, and also by the railroad. The challenges of crossing that for development, for industrial subdivision, something of that nature, we're just overwhelmed. Too high of a hurdle to pass over for such a small piece of property. But more recently, we've been approached by a number of different solar companies, and that would be a much less intensive use for the property, not require much by way of access and so forth. They only need to check those solar panels on a weekly basis, so there's not a lot of traffic coming and going as a result of them. But we need to get that power out of the property to the public way. And the closest source of what the power company referred to as a three-phase power source would be over here on South Meadow Road. It doesn't exist on West Boylston Road. The only power service is to the forestry building, and that's a single-phase low voltage supply. So this is the closest power source that we can tie into. And obviously, the straight line distance between us and South Meadow is along the Hall Road to the north of the landfill. We wouldn't have to improve the roadway. All we're doing, we could place the power poles overhead, or we could bury the power line. Either way is acceptable to the power company. But it would run along the northerly side of the landfill, tow the slope, wouldn't interfere at all with the landfill. And it would provide us with access, and as I understand, sometime in the future, the town might also be putting solar panels on top of this landfill. So it's not a use that would be uncommon to the area. We're very much interested in doing it. We're hopeful that you folks would agree that it's a good use of the property. What we need is an easement. And we understand it's an easement over town-owned land. That's something you likely can't do as a board. That would have to be done by town meeting. It would be very, very helpful to us if you folks agreed that's the way to go about utilizing this property, because right now it's just not generating any tax revenue for you, and it's not generating any income for us. So it doesn't work for either one of us, and we're hopeful that we can come up with a win-win by working through this easement arrangement with you folks.
Okay.
Would you be able, if you were driving on the main road, West Boylston Street, towards West Boylston, would you be able to see the solar panels from the road?
Not one of them. Not one. We're below street grade with this stuff. The property was mined for gravel about 20 years ago, so it's all below the railroad, below the street grade.
I was just...
Well, that's a good question,
both of you.
because it would not be visible from the street.
Thank you, sir.
Would you have a value of the cost of running those power lines?
I don't, but it's something I could get for you.
And that would be done by you, not by the power companies, not gonna put those lines in?
It would be done by us, yes.
and they would then be available for the town's use
Absolutely.
if we were to develop solar on the landfill.
It would be a joint easement agreement. It's not, we're not looking for a right-of-way. We don't want ownership of land. We just want the right to pass over it and install the utility. You would have the same right.
Okay, any other questions?
Have you reached out to the DPW superintendent? I mean, we're capping our landfill now. I'm just worried about the construction going on up there. Or...
I'll defer that one to my cousin Peter. He has spoken directly with him.
We spoke with Chris, and he actually was going to come to the meeting tonight, but he had another meeting.
Sure.
I think he spoke to Bill a little bit about it. He seems to be all in favor for it.
Okay.
It helps him going forward with his solar on top of the landfill.
Sure. Just curious if you reached out to him. Thank you.
He actually directed us to go on the Hall Road instead of above the dump towards the tracks.
Okay.
Would be the better way.
Yeah.
I just want to familiar myself with the area. I mean, not that I'm, but that's the gate that's usually locked?
Yes.
Is that the gate off South Center Road that's usually locked?
The gate to the scale house.
Yeah, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So,
what's the timing? So, you know, if you're to move forward, say an easement was approved, what's the timing? How long would it take to, install those poles, get your solar panel? I'm just trying to, because, there's, I think what the chairman was getting to, there'd be, you want access there once a week. Sure. There's gonna be,
construction.
And there's gonna be an access issue because we have this ongoing capping of the landfill.
Yeah. Well,
so what do you think about for timing? Are we talking, how many years or?
No, we're thinking very quick construction. We also have an access off of West Boylston Road, which we've always used as a haul road as well. But I can't run those utility lines over the the state property or the railroad property. So those come in along here. The equipment and so forth could be brought in this direction, so it wouldn't interfere with your operations.
Okay. And then even if I think you had mentioned that the utility company would have to check the panel once a week.
Well, they would come through once a week to check those panels and the operation. There's a switching station there for the power supply, that kind of thing.
But would that access be over the railroad tracks?
It could be, yes.
It could be, okay. All right.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I was just curious, do you know if and I'm not an expert on solar, does the local infrastructure have enough capacity to handle both yours and ours?
We've done a preliminary application with National Grid, and they said that was an acceptable entrance point for us.
Okay, did they take into account that we might be putting solar in there afterward?
They did not take into account on the landfill. I wasn't aware of it at the time. This was a year or so ago.
Okay. I need some better reassurances that it's not going to preclude us putting our own solar panels up.
Okay,
Yeah, I think some more would need to be looked at, just so we don't step on ourselves here if we want to do it down the road,
Any other questions? What's people's thoughts for proceeding?
Mr. Chairman, if I may make a motion, that we, subject to review by town council and the DPW superintendent, and subject to the concern that Mr. Kerrigan brought up, the motion is to endorse the idea of granting an easement across the property. Obviously, it's not our call to decide, but we would need town council and DPW superintendent to review everything, but it would be an article on the warrant for annual town meeting.
Second.
Okay, motion's made and seconded, and the motion is to endorse the concept of this easement, subject to review by town council and DPW, and making sure that it does not preclude the town from putting panels on the closed landfill. There any discussion? Being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And opposed, motion's carried.
Thank you for your time.
Good luck
Good
in
luck
your
with you.
project. We,
Thank
hope
you.
we can
Good luck,
work it
guys.
out. Let's see, now, administrative business. First item on administrative business is late night closings. The following establishments are requesting late night closings for Saturday in the month of March: Clem's Liberty Tavern, Clinton Turn Marine, Crystal Cafe, Old Timer, Ringside Cafe, Simple Man Saloon, and the Spruce Street Tavern. What's the pleasure of the board?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded to grant the late night closings. Is there any discussion? Being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And opposed? Motion's carried. Next item is Town Hall Youth Events. An application has been filed for use of the Town Hall Fallon Memorial Auditorium for the class of 2019 senior hop dance to be held on Saturday, March 23rd from 7 to 10 p.m. What's the pleasure of the board?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded to allow the senior hop to take place at the Fallon Memorial Auditorium. Is there any discussion? There being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And opposed, motion's carried. Old and new business. Request to meet with the Clinton Housing Authority. An invitation was sent on behalf of the Clinton Chairman of the Board of Selectmen for a joint meeting with the Clinton Housing Authority to discuss security concerns by the community in response to a recent violent incidents at the Water Street Housing Complex. The Housing Authority indicated they would like the indication to be approved by the full Board of Selectmen. What's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman, you are the chairman of the Board of Selectmen, and you have the full authority of the board to invite anyone to a meeting and to participate on the agenda that you see fit.
Well, my information is that most of the Housing Authority were inclined to meet with us, but there was one person who wished to remain, a member who wished to remain anonymous, who seemed to think that there should be a tremendous amount of bowing and scraping required before they should meet with us, and they
Mr. Chair.
went forward with him. And so, to be polite to this person who confuses his role as a member of the Clinton Housing Authority with being the grand fupa of the Punjab, we decided to go forward. Go ahead, Sean.
I was, and I believe that Mark had a similar request. I can only speak for myself, but my thoughts was it was more than a violent incident. It was a murder, and it was 2 blocks down from my house. So I know from being a public servant in the time of social media how hard it is to get accurate information out, and I wanted to offer my colleagues on the Housing Authority a chance to meet other than Monday at 3 o'clock in the afternoon once a month. Well, we're on TV. I thought it'd be a nice chance for them to come, address some concerns, maybe answer some questions, and reassure the people of this town that our public housing is secure and safe. If they don't want to take us up on that, that's fine. As a citizen, I will say that I'll vote for one of these empty chairs before I'm going to reelect anyone on the Housing Authority, because this is insulting to me. I'll withdraw my invitation.
Mr. Chairman, it may be insulting to Selectman Kerrigan, but it's insulting
Citizen Kerrigan.
Citizen Kerrigan. But it's more so, it's insulting to the community that they're supposed to be serving. They had an opportunity to be here tonight to reassure the community that we have a safe town and that they have policies in place to deal with a situation like this going forward. And they've missed that opportunity. If they don't think that's part of their mission, so be it. I don't see the purpose in bringing them here.
They can ask us next time.
What's that?
They can ask us next time.
Okay. So we're mad at them.
I think the whole town should be disappointed in them. They're elected public servants.
Yes, well, some of them are. Others
Chair.
are appointed by
5 of
various...
them are,
Yeah.
and one of them's up next year.
I would just like to add that, yes, I did have concerns as well. I read the article, I believe, in the Sunday Telegram after I learned of the murder, obviously. And there's, residents that obviously live down there that are scared, nervous, and, I think it's bigger than any board. I mean, this is, like what Bill said, I mean, it's a community issue. Still like to meet with them and ask questions and have a dialogue. So hopefully we can address the citizens that live down in that housing development so they can be rest assured that, you know, where they're living is safe and they're not gonna be in danger. That's the main goal here. So I don't know why the housing authority or certain members would be indifferent to meet with us. I don't understand why. But,
Well, I would say there was more than indifferent. They didn't want to.
it's too
It's not
bad. It's sad,
indifference.
because it's bigger than any board. I mean, this is an issue of public safety, and there's people down there that are obviously have great concern. So it's just too bad.
Okay, so, I mean, where we stand now is we ask them to come ahead and talk to us and provide information to the community, and they require bowing and scraping before that can happen. I think the board is not inclined to bow and scrape to be of assistance to the housing authority. And certainly, I would remember next time the housing authority needs to come to us for some assistance.
Well, I would just like to add, Mr. Chairman, if I may, that there's members who live down in the housing development that, you know, obviously they would call here, and if they have any concerns, they would obviously come to this board as well, and address those concerns. I'd hate to have them.
The first
you know.
phone call should be to the police station if they have concerns.
Well, absolutely, but I think if on a community hall, I don't want to think that it's on deaf ears. I still want to think that they have a place to come and voice their concerns. So that'd be my issue.
Okay, any further discussion? There being none. Next item on the agenda is KRD Growers Host Community Agreement. The attorney for KRD Growers has come to terms with town solicitor for a host community agreement to site a recreational marijuana retail and cultivation facility at 89 Parker Street in Clinton. And the draft host community agreement was attached, and I assume that what we're dealing with today is to vote to sign the host community agreement?
That is correct. That's correct, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, if I may make a motion that the board vote to sign the community host agreement with KID Growers.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded to sign the host community host agreement with KRD Growers. Is there any discussion? Being none, all in favor?
Mr. Chairman, just,
Oh, sorry.
can you amend that just to have authorize the town administrator to sign that? That's the way it's written right now, just have the town administrator
Okay.
sign on behalf of the board.
So the motion is for the town administrator to sign the host community agreement with KRD Growers. Any discussion? Being none, all in favor?
Aye.
And opposed, motion's carried.
Mr. Chairman, if
Yes.
I may, do we need to authorize a letter of non-opposition?
We should do that also, yes.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to authorize a letter of non-opposition be provided, signed by the chairman.
Signed by the chairman.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded to provide a letter of non-opposition to KRD Growers to be signed by the chairman of the board. There any discussion? Being none, all in favor?
Aye.
And opposed, motion's carried. So,
Good luck.
Good luck.
Good luck to you.
You could have skipped this meeting. Next item on old and new business is the Mass Municipal Association 8th grade statewide essay contest. The Massachusetts Municipal Association has sent information soliciting communities to participate in their annual 8th grade essay contest. Michael, do you have anything on this?
Mr. Chair, I think they ask for the selectmen if they want the community to be part of the program. If the Board of Selectmen support it, then they reach out to the school system and submit the toolkit and ask if they could have their 8th graders submit essays. So the first step is to try to get endorsement by the Board of Selectmen.
Okay. So what's the pleasure of the board with regard to the statewide essay contest?
Chairman, I'll make a motion to endorse the 8th grade statewide essay contest.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded to endorse the 8th grade statewide essay contest being promoted by the Massachusetts Municipal Association. Is there any discussion? Being none, all in favor?
Aye.
And opposed, motion's carried. Next item is DCR grant for flood protection in Clinton. The Massachusetts Legislature appropriated $50,000 for flood protection to clear debris from the Nashua River in Clinton. The Superintendent of Public Works is putting together a scope of services for review by the Board of Selectmen. So it's, okay, Michael?
Sure, Mr. Chair, just on this item and the next one is mostly informational, and hopefully we'll have the detailed next meeting for the board to approve. But there was some funding in the legislative budget this past fiscal year to provide some assistance to Clinton. One is for this flood protection, which the intent was mostly to kind of look at the Nashua River. There's a lot of overgrowth there, there's a log jam of debris at some of the railroad crossovers there, which I think years ago maybe contributed to some of the flooding that we had down in that neighborhood. So this is some funding to at least try to see how much of that area we could get cleaned out. The Superintendent of Public Works is putting together the scope of services as to what we could get for $50,000. The state needs that as an attachment to our approval, is to have a scope of services for them to review. So I'm hoping Mr. McGowan will have that for our next meeting for the board to discuss. So that one, and the next one was funding to try to help with town-owned land that the board is aware of, the town had taken through tax title at the corner of High and Water Street, the former Jean's Auto. So that's town property now, but there is environmental issues there. So there was a grant to try to get some funding to help with the remediation. So Mr. Duffy is working to put together a scope of work on that as well too, with some of the consultants that we're working on. There's a consultant that's doing an LSP that's doing an environmental assessment right now, and this money will help towards the remediation.
Would, is the DPW gonna look into the whole river in Clinton, like where High Bridge is, down Liberty Street, there's trees all crossing the water? And then, and then all the litter comes up to the trees?
Yeah, that's the hope, is to look at that whole stretch and see, hopefully, to be able to have enough funding to get as far down as we can. The issue would be just how some heavy equipment can get in to try to clear all that out, or if it has to be done manually. But the intent is to do as much as that river as possible.
Awesome, that's a great thing.
Yeah. Can always call those trees sweepers, because they basically sweep the river. They just catch everything and sweep it clean, including your canoe if you're not careful. So those are the two grants. Next item on the agenda, under old and new business, is the MMA Annual Conference, continuing the discussion to provide a briefing on the issues presented at the, so I deferred last week in the interest of time, and I also attended some of the workshops that Mr. Conley and Mr. Kerrigan reported on, the public information and the managing of boards. And another one I went to was 10 tips for infrastructure projects. And another reason I deferred is because I was looking at my handwritten notes. I couldn't read half of them. So I needed some time to put them together. And I decided that the 10 tips that they gave us were really 8. I thought some of them were subsumed under others. Basically, the tips that were suggested, and I think that there's relevance here on our infrastructure projects that I'm working on, have a goal with planning and get the right people to work on those goals. I think we do a pretty good job of that here in town. They stress the importance of communication, the importance of having a project champion, that is someone who would speak on behalf of the project and show an interest, and that would include elected officials, staff persons, and stakeholders. Again, I think we do a pretty decent job. That most of our committees have elected officials, staff holders, and people who are interested from the community. there was a whole bunch of things having to do with the importance of dollars. That is, where's the money going to come from? Making sure that you identify a funding source. I think we're pretty good at that. And being careful of adding things from a wish list, ending up with a Cadillac project when all you can afford is a Chevrolet. I believe that, like every human being, the town of Clinton has we're currently dealing with some difficulties in those areas, but we're aware of them and working on it, but it certainly is a pitfall that is easy to fall into. While we're doing it, we might as well, and as Everett Dirksen, a former Speaker of the House of Representatives, once said many years ago, showing my age, you know, $1 million here, $1 million there, and pretty soon you're talking about real money. So we're keeping an eye on that. The importance of keep pressing for information and being prepared for the unexpected. And they talked a great deal, and I found this interesting, and I find it to be true. The idea that while consultants and contractors are and should be trusted members of the team, but the nature of the public bidding laws can cause problems in that area. So while they are a trusted member of the team, the consultants, for example, are paid a percentage of the total project cost, so it is in their interest to have a higher cost. Not to say there's anything wrong with that, that's the nature of business, but as town officials, it's important for us to be aware of that. And I found that to be very interesting, and the other thing they said was the more oversight, the better. So that's my report on the Mass Municipal Association. Any others? And we're all done with that. Goals and objective discussion. Any goals and objectives to discuss? Any other old and new business? Committee reports.
Mr. Chairman, just under committee reports, I believe the Downtown High Street Committee will be meeting next Wednesday at 4:30 p.m. at the Selectmen's Chambers.
That's right.
And any members, it's gonna be a few hours. Please plan accordingly.
Okay.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
While we're on that, Marketing and Communication will be meeting on Tuesday at 7 o'clock.
Very good.
And again, Mr. Chair, we have a cable committee next Wednesday that's February 27th at 6:30 p.m. up here in the upper conference room.
Anything else in terms of committee reports? That concludes the open portion of the agenda. We are next going to be going into executive session under Article 3. That is Public Works negotiations. A roll call vote will be held once we exit from the executive session. We will not conduct any further business. We'll be adjourning the meeting.
Mr. Chairman, just before we go into roll call, I'm just going to be
sorry.
abstaining from the executive session vote on the Public Works union contract.
Okay.
As a family member works for DPW.
So we're moving into executive session. We'll have a roll call vote. Mr. Sargent?
Aye.
Mr. Connolly?
Aye.
Mr. Kerrigan?
Aye.
And chair votes aye, and Mark abstains. So we'll be going into executive session, and we will not be conducting any more business. So have a nice couple of weeks. We'll see you in 2 weeks. What is Brett gonna go into?
Want to continue?
Oh, yes. Nice to meet you. So I'll just clean that up, send you a clean copy and